All right, everybody. I have a special guest for us today. We've had different kinds of guests on here. We've had people that cover sports. We had people who are just YouTubers like myself who talk Niners, but we've never had somebody that actually played in the National Football League. My guest today has actually done that. Eric Crocker, I'm going to let you take the floor and kind of introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, man. Eric Crocker, former, NFL. I spent some time with the New York Jets. I played some years of arena football, including playing with the San Jose SaberCats, winning the Arena Bowl championship with them, playing defensive back. So, on Twitter, kind of do my thing, and kind of, I guess, have a platform that's been kind of growing. I guess we could say,
Yep.
and started from guy just kind of talking about what I see and kind of, I guess, giving my expertise, and whatnot. And people have kind of, really appreciated it and like just a different perspective on things. And that, one thing led to another. I ended up doing, a bunch of media for the 49ers, I never in a million years thought I'd be like a credentialed member of the media for the 49ers.
That's awesome.
And awesome. I've had the opportunity to do that for a couple of years. And now, yeah, man, just happy to talk some 49er football. I just try to get my opinion the best way I can. So, yeah.
When you played, were you a Niners fan from as a kid, or were you just recently, or how did that work?
Yeah, I've always my mom. I think when I was 5 or 6 years old, I was a mama's boy, and I just asked my mom, like, Mom, who's your favorite football team? And she was like, 49ers. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna be a 49er fan. So right. Like that's how I became a 49er fan, and I've always been a huge 49er fan. I think obviously, like, I kind of took it to the next level with kind of my obsession of being a Niner fan. So that's just been something my whole life. So even playing in the NFL, and I mean, like a lot of guys, man, like if there are guys in the NFL that grew up liking, a certain team, like they're always going to like that team. Think of, Steve Smith. Steve Smith talked about how, like, he has his 49er blanket and, like, the Carolina Panthers, the Baltimore Ravens, like those were his employers, like they employed him. But his favorite football team was always the 49ers. So, of course, while you're playing, you remove that fandom, but that's still there. It's still in your heart, unless you just weren't that big of a fan of a team to begin with. But obviously, I was a huge Niner fan growing up.
I live in Western New York, so I'm in Bills country, but I have a relative, like Joe Montana. He's an Italian American, kind of like Irish Italian like myself. He met a family member of mine in Italy or Sicily or something, right when I was kind of starting to get interested in football. And I asked about him, like, who is that guy? And then he told me. So I kind of started watching the Niners with some interest. And this was during when they were, busting up the Broncos, 55-10. And that's kind of like when I started. I was a fan during that era. And then I've been a fan, during all these ups and down years, like the good and the bad. I was tell Patriots fan. It's like, yeah, be diehard when there's lean years and your team ain't doing so hot. That's how you kind of measure somebody if they're a real fan or not. Like I've been a fan since I'm 41. So I don't know, 9 years old. So like, it's been a long time. Like I'm really, really excited about Trey Lance. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think it kind of rejuvenated the fan base.
Mm-hmm.
The last couple of years. I don't even say the last couple of years, but having Garoppolo, there's always been that, like, oh man, like that hope, like that. Okay, just stay healthy. And 2 out of 3 years, you see, he's kind of ended the year, hurt, and that's tough. So it made it necessary to get a guy like Trey Lance, and anytime you have an opportunity to get somebody that has that much talent, and I'm excited to just kind of see it develop and see what it can turn into.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you personally is just what you think of how John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, their offseason, as far as like free agency, draft. How would you grade it? How do you think they've done? If you had to give a 1 out of 10 grade or a ABCD, whatever, how would you grade the kind of moves that they've made and stuff like that?
Oh man, I haven't thought about a letter or a number grade or anything like that, but I'd say they've done very well. The thing is that the thing you want to do is you want to go into the offseason with a plan. I think they clearly had a plan with what they wanted to do. And there were some guys that were willing to let walk and see if they can get them back on the cheap. And they got several of those guys back, right? I think ultimately what you want to do is put yourself in the position to be able to compete for a title. Now, obviously, the goal is to win the Super Bowl, but I think more so than anything, you want to have the opportunity to do that, right? And what I mean by that is you want to have a team that is competitive each week and really gives you a realistic opportunity to win a game anytime they step on the field. And I think with the moves that they've made this offseason, being able to bring back Trent Williams, being able to add a guy like Alex Mack at center, a position where that's almost been a revolving door since, Richburg took over, kind of, seeing them draft the right guard and how important and how much emphasis they put on, the offensive line, obviously getting a quarterback of the future that has a ton of talent. We watch guys every year where it's like, man, I wish my quarterback could do this, or I wish my quarterback could do that. Now you have a guy who obviously has to develop in certain areas, but as far as talent goes, and there's no one thing that he can't do. So I feel like all the moves that they've made were very necessary. Bringing back guys like Verrett and Kawan Williams and Tart, ease a lot of the transition from, having a new defensive coordinator who obviously has been on the staff. But I mean, ultimately, I like a lot of moves, and I'd say if I had to grade it based on the standpoint of how well I think they would compete for a title, I'd have to give them an A, because I think that the team that they've put together definitely puts them in position to be, contenders or a team that can win every single week. Now, again, that's not saying they're going to win every week, but they have the ability to win every week. I don't think there's one game you go into on this schedule and 49ers can't win that game. And I think, when you look at it from that standpoint, I think they've done a good job being able to field the team to give people the confidence to be able to say that.
I feel like this draft and even free agency was not the sexiest moves, but they were necessary moves. Like the draft, you drafted a guard, you drafted a tackle, but probably who might end up playing guard as well. Couple corners, things like that. These are all necessary moves. Lance was a necessary move, but that was like the sexy pick. Everybody was clamoring for the quarterback. But after that, it wasn't the most fun draft to watch personally for me, but I was like really, after the draft, I was like, wow, they really nailed it. And then in free agency, like with the 1-year deals, being able to keep Verrett, being able to keep Juszczyk, like all integral pieces, and it's cohesiveness because it's the same guys coming back. So like I was, again, it doesn't like make the headlines like, if the Dallas Cowboys do something and they sign some big gigantic free agent or something, but I felt like they were all necessary moves that go unnoticed, but hopefully, that'll translate into victories and a division title and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think the draft, like you said, is not the sexiest in the sense of like the names, but the things that they address. Second round, I want them to take a receiver. I want them to take Terrace Marshall. But, like getting an offensive guard, and we don't know how it's all going to play out, right? Like you hope for the best, but I try to always look at the direction like that they were heading in. Like, what were they thinking when they made this? And it's like, dude, like our right guard position has not been very good. And Eric Crocker, I know you want a receiver, you want Terrace Marshall, you want that sexy splash player, but we feel like it's sexier for us to be able to bully guys up front and not have to lean on Brunskill, who's kind of an undersized guard. And now we can kind of put him back at more of a versatile swing guard, tackle, center type guy, right? I think we definitely clearly see the identity that they want to build with this team. All tough guys from the quarterback, Trey Lance, from the offensive guard that they drafted to, Trey Sermon, Thomas, Diamador, Lenore, like all these guys are tough guys. So I think when you look at it from that standpoint, they're building an identity of what they want for the future and going forward. I think they did a terrific job of that. Even though it's not the sexy names, I think they're guys that definitely fit the mindset that they want, throughout their team.
And I like the fact that they started to address possibly taking people off their draft board if they haven't. Like injury history actually matters now, because I've been one of those fans. I have a nephew who's a Niners fan. We're sweet. Like the last couple of years with the injuries, man, you just, after a while, you like kind of just like what's the point of getting excited? Like every week someone's going down that's a big name. It's so frustrating. And I'm like, something has to be done, whether it's another switch of the strength staff or some sort of philosophical change in the way they draft. The fact that they're like post-draft press conference, they like addressed that they started to kind of like, well, maybe this guy's going to come off our draft board, but like if he's available as an undrafted free agent, we'll take a look at him. You know, I'm glad that they're starting to kind of the worm's starting to turn, so to speak, in that mindset and helping maybe this injury bug that's been on this team probably the last, 7 years.
Yeah, man. 49ers have definitely had a lot of bad luck with the injuries. And I think some of it is that, right? Just kind of bad luck. But obviously, another part of it is just guys that have had a history of injuries. You see guys like Verrett, you see guys like Tart, Ward. Now, we've also seen guys like, Ward, Armstead, guys who, started off, very, much like injured players. And then they've kind of come along and been stringing together years of, being able to, play and be healthier. And I think maybe, you kind of bank on that. Even with guys like Sermon, I mean, they definitely went after guys that have a cleaner bill of health. But, Sermon is a guy who broke his collarbone in the national championship game. So, that's the biggest thing, right? We want to definitely see the 49ers be able to stay healthy for an entire year. And hopefully, I don't know if training staff can do anything about it. Maybe, them actually having OTAs this year.
Yes.
If that can help, I think it helps guys like Deebo Samuel. I think, if I had to guess, I'd say we'll see a healthier team. But again, like you said, this isn't something that just started happening last year or the year before that. Like this is going back to 2014 since these kind of injuries been piling up.
With you being someone that played in the league, do you agree with the notion of like contact callus, where like when you're in training camp or mini camps and you bang around a little bit, that it kind of helps you going into the season? Do you believe in that notion, or is that just hogwash, like so to speak?
Yeah, I don't know. I've seen like so many non-contact injuries too, So I mean, I think sometimes they're just freakish. I remember being, in Jets during training camp, Aaron Berry tore his ACL, and it was just something that just happened, like and it's just like it was a non-contact injury. So I don't know if running into people or not could have helped that. I think that was something that was going to happen regardless. Just because of maybe the way he trains. I think if you talk to trainers and you talk to guys that, like really train athletes and focus on sports performance, they'll tell you that a certain way that you train and prepare your body can help strengthen up, the ligaments around, your knee and things like that, and maybe prevent an ACL tear just with the way you run and the way you do those things. So maybe it has something to do with that, but I mean, they have the best trainers in the world, on these football staffs. So I don't know, man. Like I can't just say that it's just because of more contact or less contact. Look at a guy like Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith had 11 straight years of running over 1,000 yards, right? 11 straight years. And that was back in the day where they were doing double days during training camp, and real double days, banging, tackling, bringing guys to the ground. Twice, like 3-hour practices, then another 3-hour practice. Now this stuff is not even close to that. When I was in training camp, it was an hour and a half or like it was like a 2-hour practice. That's including the warm up, and then later you had a walkthrough. Like what I'm saying. So I think they take more precaution now, but guys are just getting hurt more. Right. Maybe it has to do with the way that they're training and whatnot. I don't know.
I was gonna say, like Jalen Hurd last year, one of the things that got me was, from what the report was, he got injured just on like a side field, like no one touched him. That's scary. Like that's when you think maybe someone, just the luck isn't in someone's favor, or they just genetics, maybe something. Because I mean, to not even be touched and to just blow your knee out, that's just, you feel for the guy, but at the same time, it's like, how many more chances is he going to get? I hope this year he kind of comes through and is able to stay healthy. I would like to see what he could be. But yeah, like he didn't even get touched and he went down. That's just sad.
Yeah. And again, I think maybe some of it has to do with how they prepare. Prepare their body, prepare, some of their ligaments and the tendons and things like that. And, that could be as to why some of those things kind of give out. But I would have to talk to more of a person that specializes in that So, but I don't know. It's all interesting. I feel like just injuries happen more frequently now than they used to back in the day.
Definitely. So I'm going to kind of switch topics for a
And I was
for a
somebody
bit.
real quick,
Oh,
and I
go
was
ahead.
somebody that never got hurt. I was somebody that never got hurt. So I don't know what I did differently or anything like that. Like I never tore an ACL or anything like that. I never, never pulled a hamstring. Like never got hurt. I didn't miss my first game ever until the very last year I played, where I got a high ankle sprain because somebody dove into my ankle. But aside from that, never in my entire life did I miss a game due to injury. Now, that's not to say I was never like banged up or had something wrong with my hand or my shoulder or something like that. But in the sense of anything that kept me out of a game, never ever happened in my entire life until my very last year playing.
It's crazy. What's your excitement level, trepidation about Trey Lance? Like, how excited are you personally with the pick? Was it your guy, or did you have somebody else in mind? Or
I think if I could pick one guy like in this entire draft at the quarterback position, it would have been Justin Fields.
okay,
But that's with me. That's with me not factoring in the human. All right. Now, when you add the kind of human element to it, and you kind of want to factor in, like, yeah, when you factor in the human element of who this guy is, and me kind of understanding why guys end up kind of becoming bust and how that whole thing happens, you know, I think people just look at guys that end up busting. It's like, oh, he's a bust because he just wasn't good enough. Like, no, that's not the case. A lot of times these guys have an immense amount of talent, but it's up here. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Like the way that they prepare, their work ethic, like their dedication to the game, to the sport, their ability to retain information and process it and then be able to put it to use. And when you start to kind of factor in those things and how it pertains to Trey Lance, I started to get more excited about him. Obviously I saw the talent in which was on the field, and that's
mm-hmm.
great. Obviously, like, there's questions and areas where you feel like he can improve and whatnot, but is he going to have the mindset? Does he have the ability to improve on those things? And when you start to find out who Trey Lance is and his upbringing and him, waking up his dad at 5 a.m. to work out every morning, like, you start
Awesome.
to hear those things, and it's like, I could see why he's a player that the 49ers will fall in love with. And I was saying it before the draft. I'm like, man, if I'm the football mind that I think I am, then and if I see the game the way I think I do, and if I'm good with that, then Trey Lance is going to be who the 49ers pick, because he exemplifies everything that you want in a football player, like, in the sense of trying to get better. So obviously we see the talent, we see the body, the athleticism, right? 6'4", 225. Always like to look at what you can teach, what you can't teach. 6'4", 225, you're either that or you're not, right? And he's probably going to gain even more weight and just be a stronger athlete. Big arm, like those are things you can do things to improve arm strength, but only to a certain extent. And I think he has the ability to even go above what we've seen so far from an arm strength ability. Those are things that are really hard to kind of teach, but then his mindset and his approach to the game and the professionalism at, the age of barely turning 21.
Right.
Those are things that, again, like, people can see those things and they come across a certain way. So I'm extremely excited about the potential of him and what he can be and what he can be in this offense and how he expands on what Kyle Shanahan like has done with Garoppolo and the things that he can do, with Trey Lance, being able to obviously add him in the run game, but even more so than that, being able to throw the ball outside the numbers more consistently, throw the ball downfield. I think he helps kind of open up things where with Jimmy Garoppolo has been a little bit more condensed to more of a over the middle style, 3-step drop, balls out right now style offense. And again, great. Like, I think Jimmy Garoppolo, I think Kyle developed an offense that suits Jimmy and his skill set very well, and that led them to a Super Bowl. But I think that there's even more that Kyle Shanahan has to offer from an explosive ability, and I think Trey Lance can help take him there.
I feel like having Rich Scangarello back too, and Kyle together, and they finally have their hands on a prospect like Trey Lance. I mean, look at the guys they've worked with, and now they finally get someone with such raw ability. They've got to be drooling at the prospect of what they could do with this guy. Because you're right, it's a very condensed offense, very over the middle. You never really see them press the ball down the field, so it'd be fun. I hope they work him in somehow this year, even if it's like a Taysom Hill type thing, because that'll be like 2 or 3. How long will it be if he was to play in 2022 that he hasn't stepped on the field? So it'd be interesting. Those guys got to be excited to have such a moldable piece of clay that can do so many things.
Yeah, and I think anybody that is an offensive mind, or just any coach in general, you always look at like, man, the possibilities of what I can do with this kid. Whether he's a freakish defensive end, and you're like, man, this is a freaky defensive end. We can play him on the outside. We can do these kind of stunts with him and all these different things, right? Like, I think you look at a guy like Trey Lance that way, where it's like, man, all these different things I can do with him. And, I think they're bringing them around, along the right way. Not putting pressure on him to have to be able to take over and be the guy from day one. I think they're kind of banking on it happening more organically. If he just so happens to just be ready and look good in training camp, then he'll end up starting week 1. If you can see that he's just not ready to take that on just yet, then it's something that will happen organically down the line, right? And they've kind of made it to where they're not going to put that pressure on him to be that guy right now. A lot of times when you do that, guys start pressing. And the last thing I think you want Trey Lance to do is press, especially in a situation where it's like, we have a quarterback that can start and we can win with him. So we don't need to play this rookie. Obviously, we would like to and be able to throw more things at him and be more dynamic with our offense, but we can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that's probably the best thing that Trey Lance has working for him, not having to just be a guy from day one. And so I'm excited about that aspect of it, just having him be able to learn and everything kind of progress more organically than forcing him into a position that he's not ready for. And now when it happens, I don't know. When you hear everything about who this guy is, it's something that can happen possibly in training camp, right? Like, right. We all hear the stories about Garoppolo and him maybe not being, the best practice player, and me, being, a credentialed media of the 49ers while I was in California. I've seen it up close during training camp where it's not great. Like, he just looks like an average quarterback. I think when you see him on the field, I think he's able to execute at an above average level. But in practice, it's not something that looks pretty. So there is a scenario where, if Trey Lance gets it mentally and gets up here and he's able to just kind of play fast and he has that ability to stretch the field and stuff, there's a scenario where it's like, damn, we know we can win with Jimmy Garoppolo, but we have this young dude who's pushing him, and he actually just looks better right now in practice because Jimmy's not a great practice player. And I think if you see that, it's almost going to kind of force their hand to start Trey Lance. So, I think ideally you would hope that Jimmy just brings his A game and maybe he plays a little bit looser because he knows, at some point Trey Lance is going to play regardless. So let me go out there, let me play loose and not worry so much about having to be perfect with every throw and, that I make. Let me just go out there and just be free. And I think if he does that, I think we might even see the best version of Jimmy Garoppolo that we've ever seen. I think there's a scenario where that happens.
The thing with Trey Lance, too, is I personally, as a fan, won't be surprised if he struggled a little bit just because he hasn't played in so long. He hasn't gone against, 11 on 11, moving fast in practice type stuff. Like, if that happens, I know the media might make a big deal out of it because maybe Mac Jones or Justin Fields looks better in training camp than Trey Lance or something. That's going to be a story. But I personally, if it happens and there's like a little bit of struggle, I hope there's not. I hope he just like wows everybody. But like if that was to happen, I wouldn't really be surprised, and I would expect it. So, but I always kind of set the bar to a reasonable place. So then if it hits a place that is awesome, then I'm like totally surprised. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we know what we want him to get to. I think that the expectations for any rookie should be kind of, tempered a little bit.
Yeah.
I saw Geno Smith and Mark Sanchez go at it, and that quarterback competition and what it ended up looking like. And there was a lot of ugly moments from Geno. There were some good moments from Geno. You know what I'm saying? So ultimately they ended up putting Mark Sanchez on IR before the season started. I think a lot of that had to do with just maybe making it to where Gino can just play a little bit more free and not have to look over his shoulder and wonder if they're going to pull him for Mark Sanchez. Like, no, we're just going to put Sanchez on IR and the job is yours. You know what I'm saying? Maybe the 49ers, I can't see them doing something like that, but I definitely, can see a situation again where Trey Lance just looks better in practice. And I think that's what I keep kind of coming back to because of what we've seen from Garoppolo in practice, not really look like the best quarterback.
I wanted to switch topics to your area of expertise. So the Niners picked 2 corners in the draft, Diamador Lamar and Ambry Thomas. What are your thoughts on the both of them? I know a lot of people have been really, Grant Cohn and some others have been really excited. They even like the guy from Locked On 49ers,
Brian Peacock.
Yeah, like he was talking about it on one of his podcasts. I listened to all you guys. Freaking like overload. But yeah, he was talking about it. Like, he's not like there's some things that he's not elite on or Thomas, but like he could see both of them kind of like not being overwhelmed by the spotlight if they had to come in and play this year. What are your thoughts on the two of them?
Yeah, different style of cornerbacks. I think, Lenoir is a little bit more finesse, where Thomas is a little bit more hands-on at the line of scrimmage. I think they both bring a different style. So that's good. Having guys who with contrasting styles. I could see Lenoir possibly being somebody that ends up playing in the nickel, but I think he definitely brings you outside cornerback value as well. When you look at Lenoir, I think with him is just, I wanted to see like at the line of scrimmage, dude, you feather out, you give up too much space, you create the space for the receiver. So in turn, the receiver kind of has the ability to kind of get on your toes and have his way with you. I saw it a bunch in the Arizona State game where Brandon Ayuk gave him fits, and I've seen it in some other games. But if he can just focus in and not give ground and be a little bit more aggressive in the sense of making the receiver work laterally at the line of scrimmage, he'd be terrific. And then next thing you know, you see a clip from training camp where he's picking off a pass and he made the receiver work laterally. That was great for me to see because I know what I watched with him in college. While he was good, I thought he had tremendous feet, change of direction, all those things. I wanted to see him make the receiver work a little bit more laterally. He did that. So that was really good to see. When it comes to Thomas, I think the tough thing with him was they didn't do – everything was at the line of scrimmage, everything. Where Lenoir, you'd see him play press, you'd see him play off, you'd see him challenge himself in space, you'd see him challenge his transitioning in and out of breaks. With Thomas, it was just, I'm at the line of scrimmage, I'm in your face every single play. They ran so much press, man. So now my thing is always, I want to see you play man and see if you're good there because I can teach zone. I can teach zone eyes. So even with Thomas, I think with him from off coverage, I would have liked to see him maybe get out of his pedal and, explode out of a break a little bit more. Maybe at least just see it a few times. I never got to see that to just kind of be able to diagnose that. But from the standpoint of like ability, I thought he was a smooth athlete, maybe not the twitchiest, but I thought he was really confident in his ability to press. There were times where, especially against Notre Dame, where he had to play essentially kind of catch technique. And I thought, that really showed how much patience he has and how much trust he has in his feet and the ability to be able to turn around with receivers. So there's a lot to like, I think, with both of the guys. And obviously they were drafted where they were, for a reason. I think when it comes to Ambry Thomas, Matt Nagy was in, or not Matt Nagy, Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl was in my comments, and he was like, look, this was a guy that we had a top 50 grade on. And, guys think that he's slipped to late third round because he opted out and then he got sick and they just didn't really see a whole lot from him this year. So I think they expected him to be good this year and be a guy who can, make more of an impact, but the league didn't really get a chance to see that. And I think that kind of worked to the 49ers' benefit, being able to get him late third round.
I think it's good too with the Niners because they have people already there, but like I think Verrett's pretty established. I think he's a starter, but like a guy like Mosley, He was an undrafted free agent. I'm not nothing wrong with that. I mean, some great players in the NFL are undrafted free agents, but like, he has his limitations. So like, I feel like either one of those guys, if there was an eventuality, could maybe beat him out or not. They have really good depth behind the both of them. So I'm happy kind of either way.
I was excited for them to kind of get some young depth
Yeah.
and get some guys that maybe have some, high upside promise. That's been kind of the biggest thing where they've needed to kind of revamp the position, but they just couldn't. I was telling people, about the years before where you kind of look at the team and it's like, man, like, there's Richard Sherman, who is going to be starter, right? He's going to be the starter. And then you had Keller Witherspoon and Mosley, who you were banking on really competing for that other job. And then you had a guy like Verrett. Like, so it was like, well, what do I draft a guy? Like, I can't draft a guy in the first couple of rounds because I'm going to need to expect him to play. And I didn't think that was the situation. I thought they had a solid 4 guys where it's like we know one starter and the other 3 guys are going to kind of compete for that spot. And obviously all guys end up kind of playing because of injuries and whatnot. But when you look at this year and kind of like the lack of depth, you knew that they had to put more priority on addressing the cornerback position and, drafting those 2 guys to kind of go with who they have with Verrett, with Mosley, even Dante Johnson and Kawhi Williams. I think right now we really kind of know who their 5 or 6 cornerbacks are going to be. Now it's just, can guys stay healthy and how do these young guys end up progressing? Because, hey, there's only a 1-year contract with Verrett and Kawhi Williams. Maybe these guys can kind of step in and be those guys moving forward. So I really like them really addressing that cornerback spot. I thought it was a need.
Switching sides of the ball. I have like 2 questions. I'm going to kind of morph them into one. The Niners have a slot receiver issue for some reason. They signed Marquise Lee and then let him go. And then they signed this other guy whose name I'll not say because I'll butcher it.
Benny Fowler.
Benny Fowler. Yeah, somebody in the comments on one of my videos cracked on me for saying it wrong, so I didn't want to say it again. But yeah, they have an issue too, but I think with the depth behind George Kittle. So like, I feel like those 2 spots, it's like, could you see like any post June 1st moves, or do you think the Niners are going to stay pat at what they got?
I mean, when you look at it, man, it all depends on who. If you're going to take a big swing, right, with like a Julio Jones, then that's different. But if you're not going to take like that type of big swing and you're just like, well, we just want to get a receiver at wide receiver 3 or whatnot, then I think you kind of stay in-house unless all these guys just suck, right? But you at the very least give them the opportunity. So you look at it, Richie James, Sanu, Jalen Hurd, if he can be healthy, like we'll see. Juwan Jennings just drafted him last year. Like, let's see, like, we'll see, Travis Benjamin. Like, there's all these names where these guys are just kind of competing. And if they just all suck, all trash, then you look to maybe address it where, maybe you bring in a guy like Golden Tate, or maybe you trade for, which I can't see them doing it because of the contract, but, bringing in Crowder somehow. Like,
right.
But I think all those scenarios would have to be something that, like, we've seen that Richie James definitely can't play, which I don't think is the case. I think he can be solid 3rd receiver, 4th option.
Right.
Sanu definitely can't play, which I don't think that's the case. So, and Jalen Hurd, if healthy, like definitely can't play again. I don't think that's the issue. So I think more so it's just going to come down to, I think they like the guys. That's what they're telling us, right? They didn't draft guys, or they didn't go, after receivers in free agency because they like the guys. They need to throw bodies there to create competition. But, I think they kind of like, the fact that we just need one of these guys to take control of that 3rd receiver, which is really the 4th option for the 49ers. And we're talking about a team too that everybody wants to put so much emphasis on the wide receiver 3 position, but it is a position that the 49ers run a ton of 21 personnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, we're talking about 2 backs, 1 tight end majority of the time. Like, they're not a team that is a heavy 11 personnel team like maybe like the Rams or maybe the Saints might be or something like that. So I think even in the 49ers offense, that 3rd receiver is even less of a priority. The only time it becomes something where it's like, my body's in the ass not having like that legit 3rd guy is if, a Debo or Ayuk kind of go down and you have to play multiple games without them. That's when it can be an issue. But if guys just stay fairly healthy for the most part, I think they're going to be just fine.
What do you think about the Zach Ertz talk? People have been times around out there like Brian Peacock and other people. I totally fine with that move if it was ever possible. Because, Kittle, my whole thing with Kittle is, you see all his workout videos and stuff, and you're like, this guy really cares. He loves to take care of his body, but he plays at such a smash mouth pace, him and Debo, that like, I just never have confidence that they're going to make it all the way through a season. And I feel like anytime you can add a little depth, if it doesn't cost you a ton, which I don't know what the situation is with Ertz, then why not? But I don't know. I just get nervous with the guys because they play so hard. You almost wish, like, go out of bounds, go down once in a while instead of, powering through people and trying to, personally inflict harm on somebody. Just go out of bounds,
I think when it comes to Deebo Samuel, his biggest thing is just kind of having good health, like now, right? Like when you look at last year, I think everything kind of started with the broken foot, and then it was kind of a snowball effect throughout the year, and he had the 2 non-contact injuries with his hamstring, right? So as long as he can, I think, stay healthy now, that where he doesn't have anything that kind of limits his offseason conditioning and training, I think Debo is going to be fine. With George Kittle, I think with him too, I think when you look at kind of his injuries last year, they were so freakish, right? We're talking about one where Jimmy Garoppolo threw the ball too high, he gets hit in the knee and tears his knee up or whatever and misses a bunch of games. Then he comes back and he hurt his foot just going up for a contested pass that Nick Mullins threw. So I think when you kind of look at the situations on how both of these guys got hurt, they were just really like flukish. Not so like I know we look at their physical brand of football and like, oh, that's going to cause the injuries with both Debo and Kittle. But last year that really wasn't the case. There were really just kind of freakish injuries and then kind of led to other stuff. But I do look at the tight end 2 spot, and to me it is a little concerning. I really liked last year, being able to have Jordan Reed, and have that legit second tight end option. I think he filled in extremely well when he was healthy. Obviously wasn't able to stay healthy for a whole time, but those things were really good to see. I think having a guy like Ertz gives him a legitimate option at tight end. I think, and I don't know if the 49ers are thinking like this, but maybe they view Juszczyk as a tight end too, right? Like maybe they look at him as like, okay, yeah, he's our fullback, but we do a lot of pass catching things with him, and he'll catch enough passes to maybe not be a wide receiver 2, or a tight end 2 like that we traditionally think of, but just the way they use him as a pass catcher, or maybe like come out in 21 personnel, motion him to where now he's at the end of the line, and then he can either block or run routes from there. And obviously he has like that pass catching ability. So maybe we're so worried about what it looks like on paper, but in their eyes, they look at him as another pass catching option that gives them like the ability of a tight end.
I have a couple more quick questions, and I'm going to let you go because I know you did your thing before you came on here.
All good.
Again, back to Trey Lance. Do you think the Niners should do some sort of, like I said, some sort of package with him, like a Taysom Hill, or should it be something that happens organically? Do you think they'd have like set plays for him to come in where, like, I don't know, like I feel like he's got to get on the field at least a little bit this year, not to supplant Jimmy, but like to come in and maybe throw the defense off, maybe a run option play, like when the Niners do, send the running back one way, send the quarterback the other way, and they have to pass the ball. What do they call that? I know the type. What's
like
that?
Misdirection play? Or
yeah, they're the type of play they always call it. Jet sweep, whatever.
Okay, yeah.
Could you see something like that, or do you really think that it just would be better if he sat a year?
No, I think you definitely want to play. At the end of the day, like you're going to learn more, from doing than you are just kind of sitting there holding the chalkboard. Now, maybe mentally the game starts to slow down and you truly understand it. But at the end of the day, until you get those live bullets, like, there's nothing that's going to be better for him than just the kind of the real raw live action. I think in the sense of how to, really utilize him, and kind of get him. I think packages sound so bad to fans, especially when you kind of throw out names like Taysom Hill. But I think, they create a package for him where they get to utilize his skill set. Like, it doesn't have to look like a Taysom Hill. You know what I'm saying? It could just be something that they designed for. Trey Lance. So, I mean, he can be under center. It could be bootlegs. It could be different things that kind of get him in the flow of the offense and get him, easy completions, as well as be able to utilize his legs. It doesn't have to be just this negative kind of like context thing with like what you hear with Taysom Hill. So I think, yeah, you just get him the ball, and maybe he comes in short yardage situations where he has run pass options, and he can gain his experience that way, kind of get used to the speed of the game live, like knowing he can take hits, but also still be able to utilize his skill set, and then kind of continue to improve on that. We saw that early on with Colin Kaepernick, where
yes,
he was coming in more like just read option, just pure read option, wasn't really throwing the ball, but just utilizing him. And again, what a package might look like for Trey Lance might be different than what a package looks like for a Taysom Hill, So that's just kind of how I view that. Whatever he puts together, we saw that with, and some people might be young and might not remember, but Michael Vick, they had Chandler at quarterback. He was a starting quarterback, and they would just kind of get Mike Vick in there and just, work him in a little bit and give him a little bit of time and get him just some, live in-game rep experience. And I could see them doing that with Trey Lance.
To me, it all comes down, like I've so many videos I've made over the time since I started my channel. And anytime I've talked to Larry or any other YouTubers, it's all predicated on health. Everything we want, me and my nephew the same way, we talk about this all the time. Every year we get excited, but it all comes down to health. Everything we want and dream about for the 49ers, I feel like just predicated on staying healthy, man. If the Niners can stay healthy, they have a pretty damn good roster, which kind of goes into my final question. Do you think the roster at its full strength is good enough to compete in the NFC with a team like, say, Tampa or Green Bay?
Oh, yeah, 1,000%. I think when you factor in not just the roster, but who the puppet masters are, right? Like, the coach behind the scenes and, how he's able to, draw up things. I mean, shoot, we saw them competing when they had Nick Mullins playing quarterback last year for multiple games, which is not ideal, especially with all the injuries that they had. I think as most of the year had like the most money on IR in the entire NFL. So 49ers were still competitive, even with that type of roster. So you look at them if they're healthy and what they can do, and I think you're seeing a team that should be able to compete, definitely for the NFC and kind of give you that type of ability. So yeah, healthy, I have no issues with the 49ers and what they can do. But again, like you said, man, they just got to stay healthy.
If people want to find you, you want to tell them where they could go if they want to look at your channel, your Twitter, whatever?
Yeah, I just started the YouTube page about a month ago. So make sure if you guys aren't already, subscribe to the YouTube. It's called Croc Talk TV. So, I got a bunch of content that I put out on there, especially a lot, directed to the 49ers. So again, that's Croc Talk TV. I have a Patreon account, patreon.com/Croc Talk, where I talk more about prospects and guys coming out of college football, doing a bunch of breakdowns and everything. And then I have, Twitter at Eric_Crocker. You guys should be able to see my name, my Twitter name handle in the on my little picture right there. There it goes right there. So yeah.
I appreciate you coming on, man. Like I would love to do this again. I know you're a busy dude. I'm trying to build my brand, but at the same time, I like having people on who've kind of like dabbled in stuff, whether, like I said, whether it's a media person like Kruger or someone who's actually strapped on a jock and put on a helmet, like who actually has legitimate say in stuff and not just, us fanboys who talk like we know what we're talking about. I would love to do this again.
Talk about more than you give yourself credit for, man. Like I always say that, like, they all these analysts and experts and stuff like that, man. Like the fans be knowing what they're talking about. The fans know their team probably more than a lot of people talking on TV. So give yourself more credit. Man.
Especially those guys that thought that Mac Jones was going to go to the 49ers. I'm never going to let that go, especially if Lance ends up being really good. I'll never let that go. I will always that'd be crazy. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'll let you go. I'd like to do this again if you want, some point down in the future, maybe training camp or during the season or something like that. If you want, it's up to you.
Heck yeah, man. Anytime, man. Just holler at me. It's all good.
All right, because I've seen you on. Like I said, I've seen you on Nothing But Niners. I've seen you on. I've heard you on.
Those my guys, man. They kind of introduced me to this whole thing, like
Yeah, that's kind of
YouTube
where
and
I got my
talking.
inspiration to start doing this. Was their channel in Rombo. I
Yeah.
know I was never going to be like their level or whatever because they
Hold
have a
on,
lot.
man. Don't sell yourself short. I'm telling you, man. Like, don't sell yourself short. Like, don't put a cap on like what you can or can't be and all that. Like, I think at the end of the day, like you just you give it your all. You kind of draw up your plan and make your
Mhm.
goals on what you want to be and where you want to take it, and you just strive to get there, no matter how long it takes. Because I think a lot of people they want things to happen overnight, and it ain't gonna happen overnight like that. But me,
No, it
I
takes
look at
time.
where my page is right now, and it's like, all right, closing in on 4,000 subscribers. Like,
That's
where
awesome.
where do you want to take this though? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you want this to be? And it's like, man, I want this to be a show like Pat McAfee has. So
Yeah,
like that's what I'm building towards. Like I'm right now I'm getting my studio for my podcast and stuff set up, and it's like, all right, let me invest my time, let me invest my money into this, and really give it the best chance. And I mean, those things aren't going to happen overnight. Those things are going to happen, months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and then you just kind of progressively see how it grows. So I say all that to say, don't sell yourself short, just because you see where, my guy, Nick and Mike and what those guys are doing. Obviously, they're doing an excellent job, but
Jason
they've
Aponte, all those dudes. Those guys are fantastic, man.
yeah, they've created that platform though, like right. They Grant Cohn, like they
Yeah.
continue, they find their niche and
Yep.
they find out what works for them. I would say do that, like find your niche, like what's gonna work for you, and then push that, and but don't sell yourself short. You sell yourself short, then yeah, you ain't never gonna do it. You're never gonna
Right.
be that. But if you tell yourself you could be that big and you continue to work and grind in that light and you be consistent, like why can't you? Why can't you do that? They're just like you.
I appreciate that. I think it's great too. Like when former players do channels, like you, JT O'Sullivan. I always find myself fixated on watching channels with people that have played,
Yeah.
because what they say means something. You know what I mean? Like they know what they're like. Not saying that, like you said, fans know what they're talking about too, but like when someone who's actually strapped on a jock and put on a helmet and like gotten smashed by somebody running them over or something or whatever,
It's
like
just a different
JT,
perspective.
yeah, JT O'Sullivan. Like I find myself just like I don't understand half the stuff he's saying because I can't read I can't read coverage. But like, man, like he just draws me in. It's like easy listening, man. It's like easy jazz or something when you listen to it and you're just chill. Like you too, like the same with you, the Brian Peacock. Even though Brian didn't play, he's just like, man. Some people just got that thing with their voice and the way they talk and the way they easily explain everything. It's great. Like you're right. I'll try to find my own niche too. I'm trying little by little.
Find your niche, man. Find your niche. And now it might not be Peacock, man. Peacock has like the best voice in the business.
Yes, he
But
does. Probably has really
but
good equipment too, so that probably helps a little bit. But I don't
yeah,
know.
but you find your niche and you push it and you push it and you push it, man. And again, there's no reason why you can't be, as big as the next person. You have to sell yourself as that. And the more you sell yourself as being that type of guy, then your following will grow. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, don't sell yourself short, man. You
Appreciate it.
good.
Are you cool with me retweeting this the stream and on Twitter or everything like that?
Yeah, man, do your
That's what
thing, man.
I
Yeah, let's do
appreciate
it.
that. All right, man. I appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate everything, and hopefully I could talk to you again in the future. Godspeed, stay healthy, man, and I'll see you on the flip side, man. Appreciate it.
All right.
See you, brother.
Peace.